sets a precedent that you won't accept official election results from Elections Canada, and you're not willing to listen to the vote of the people when your party doesn't win?
I'm not getting into that. I'm sorry to rain on the spectacular parade.
Pierre Poilievre had to fact check and correct a couple of journalists. He also said something about the Liberal government being a threat to Canada. We're going to get into that after Mark Carney had quite literally one of the worst 48 hours possibly in political history. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, follow, like, share, comment your thoughts down below. Speaking of Mark Carney, by the way, he got absolutely roasted. And, so did one of his ministers, possibly one of the worst grillings we have seen. And it is so enjoyable to watch them try to recover from this one. All that and more coming up today on Over Opinionated.
Having campaigned on a message that America wanted to break Canada in order to own it, the former Bank of England governor has called on his king for help.
His Majesty coming sends a message first and foremost to Canadians. All issues around Canadian sovereignty have been accentuated by the president.
Have they, or were they accentuated by your own party? And this journalist definitely asks the right questions here.
Why did you meet him?
He was expressing a desire. He wasn't calling. He'd shifted from the expectation to a desire for that to happen. He was also coming from a place where he recognized that wasn't going to happen. I made it clear to him.
Do you think that he ever intended to annex Canada?
There's wish and reality. Did he want to? Did it look like an attractive combination to him? Yes. Does he still muse about it? Perhaps. Is it ever going to happen? No, never.
Let's just cut the crap, shall we? Because I am so sick and tired of being gaslit, manipulated, lied to. I'm so sick and tired of everybody falling for this absolute nonsense. Everybody knew, Mark Carney knew, that Donald Trump was never serious. And for the record, by the way, Trump did not change his rhetoric about 51st state comments. He didn't change his motives about it at all because Mark Carney told him that'll never be the case. He knew that. Duh. And the worst part is when you talk to people all the time like they're absolute idiot stupid heads, then they end up turning out to be absolute idiot stupid heads. And it's really frustrating. That's actually kind of a big topic that we have on today's show in general. But wow, was this ever fast? You know, Mark Carney, he's screaming and crying, oh, scary, bad Donald Trump man. I'm the hero economist here to save you. I've dealt with people like Trump before. Just all of that annoying nonsense. And plot twist. Yeah, it turns out Mark Carney is exactly who conservatives were telling you he was the entire time because he just quietly dropped the vast majority of Canada's retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods. Actually, almost all of them. This is coming out of Oxford Economics. Why? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because having tariffs on Canada is really, really harmful to the Canadian economy because we are, in fact, quite dependent on the United States. And this was a battle Canada was never going to win, despite them trying to lie to you and convince you that it was. This was never about sovereignty. That's absurd. It's ridiculous. This was always about selling you a story, and this is exactly why things in Canada don't change, because they have made stupid heads as a good chunk of our population. I can't help but wonder as well, because, you know, Justin Trudeau said retaliatory tariffs, Mark Carney, retaliatory tariffs, everybody in the Liberal leadership race was on that same boat, and also the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, said retaliatory tariffs. This was something a lot of Conservatives really criticized. I criticized him for this as well because retaliatory tariffs make absolutely no sense. And I wonder if Carney is almost trying to go after some of those Conservative voters now with this, because according to Tony Stillo, who is Oxford's director of Canada economics, he said it's a strategic play on the government's part to not damage the Canadian economy. And as for Mark Carney's government, they announced a 6-month tariff exemption for products used in Canadian manufacturing, processing, and food and beverage packaging, and for items related to healthcare, public safety, and national security. Automakers got a break. Companies that manufacture in Canada, such as General Motors, are allowed to import some vehicles into Canada tariff-free.
We intend to make the most of our advantages in these negotiations.
Do you trust him?
I will work with them and negotiate with them, yeah.
But do you trust him?
Look, my answer is my answer.
Okay, I'll leave it on that.
A couple of the retaliatory tariffs that remain are on food items such as orange juice, alcohol, coffee, as well as clothing and cosmetics. According to this article on BNN Bloomberg, it says Carney fought and won an election last month by convincing millions of Canadian voters that he was the best candidate to handle a trade war with the U.S., which buys about 3/4 of Canada's exports. So, shocker, you got absolutely duped. One thing that is very interesting, though, is that these tariffs are remaining on food. And then we also had this coming out of CBC yesterday.
Canada's largest grocery chain is warning Canadians that we're going to have to pay more for groceries and soon. And Donald Trump's tariffs are to blame. Scott is back and following the story. This is Loblaws. The CEO says they've kind of kept things as low as they could to this point, but things are going to change.
Yeah, and this is Loblaw in this instance, but this is affecting a lot of the grocery stores. But Loblaw coming out and saying that they've tried to build up their inventory pre-tariff worries, and now that inventory is running out. So now they're going to be buying inventory at higher tariff levels, and they're going to be passing those prices along, of course, to us, the consumers.
A completely random side note before we jump into more juicy stuff here. I forgot to do this yesterday. I'm sorry. I have the memory of a goldfish, apparently, but I wanted to wish Jane a very happy 30th birthday. Jane is somebody who lives not too far from me, and I have been told she watches everything religiously. So happy birthday to you. And if everybody wants to leave some good messages for the forever young Jane, that would be wonderful in the comment section down below.
But I think the missing piece of that puzzle is, will you actually do it? And how are you going to pay for it? And the reason so for example, for the fall economic statement, I take your point that it's going to be more thorough, but I remember your predecessor, Chrystia Freeland, instructing us many times, this is not a mini budget. This is just an update on where finances are concerned. And I'll point to, for example, other things that have happened with your government in the past, where you've made a promise to cut consultants and instead the spending on consultants has gone up 13%. Like, how are we as Canadians to hold your government accountable for what you're promising if you're not going to be transparent about it for 6 months or so? And I take your point about the timeline, throne speech. There's still another month.
And I would say this is a new government. So let's start, if we're going to start, this is a new government, new legislature, new prime minister. So the direction is very clear. He's been
But you're still the finance minister.
Yeah, I'm still the finance minister. And I would say the world has changed also in 6 weeks.
Nothing to see here, folks. We are a totally new government, and I'm in the exact same role with this new government. Like, come on already. And you know what? I've seen CBC posting things, having like some liberal pundits, oh, this is fine that they're doing this. It's not fine. This also is not normal at all. This is incredibly rare, especially for a newly elected government. It's legally murky because Parliament needs to approve new spending. That's how that works. It's also very, very suspicious. You need to tell me that you're going to increase our spending by upwards of $126 billion, and you are not going to give access to the public or even allow any parliamentary scrutiny over those fiscal plans.
Now, Mr. Carney said during the election campaign that he had a plan, and he took great delight in saying that a slogan is not a plan. Well, a budget is a plan. And if he does indeed have a plan, if he does know what he's doing, then he would introduce a budget so that Canadians know exactly what the finances are. We were very disappointed yesterday to hear that he has no budget plan for this year. This makes it the longest period without a budget since the 60s, the first time there has not been a budget outside of COVID in over 20 years. Extremely unusual. It'll send a bad signal to investors and ratings agencies, and a lot of people will wonder what the Liberal government is hiding about our finances. And so we're here with solutions. I'm proposing offering the Prime Minister to sit down with him and propose conservative solutions that we hope that he will steal. I want him to steal our best ideas. That includes cutting the bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, and other wasteful spending to bring down deficits, inflation, and taxes. We want a real income tax cut that rewards hard work, axe the federal sales tax on new homes to promote more building and lower costs, and stand up against American tariffs with lower taxes on Canadian investment and by repealing all of the anti-energy policies like C-69, C-48, the energy cap, the electric vehicle mandate, and unleashing our resources so that we can become the richest country in the world.
Before we go back to Vache Capello's grilling Francois-Philippe Champagne over this, because it's incredibly odd, I want to first give you my hypothesis as to the 4 major reasons why they might be doing this. Number 1, they're not ready. If that's the case, well, you have a failed government from the get-go, which after the last 48 hours, we know that to be the case.
As a result of the aggression caused against the Palestinian and the Gazan people in Palestine, and using food as a political tool is simply unacceptable, and we need to continue to work towards a ceasefire. We need to ensure that we have a two-state solution, and Canada will continue to maintain that position.
Number 2, they want to delay bad news because a fiscal plan does include trade-offs, especially when you are trying to spend $126+ billion on things that aren't actually increasing our economy at all. If you go through the Liberal platform, you can see that all of their new spending, none of it is something that will directly affect our economy.
Is Stephen Guilbeault a threat to national unity in his current role as Minister of National Identity and Quebec Lieutenant?
Yes, he is. Absolutely. I mean, I just find it astonishing that Mr. Carney would appoint a man who says we don't need any pipelines built. The Liberals went around the country pretending they had changed their minds about pipelines after 10 years of blocking them. But now one of Mr. Carney's top ministers comes out and says we don't need any more pipelines, and that he would work to block those pipelines. He wants to block road construction. He's against nuclear power. He's against all forms of economic development. And that will be bad for the entire country, to be clear, but especially antagonistic to the resource-producing provinces like Saskatchewan and Alberta, who rightly feel that they have been mistreated by this lost Liberal decade. So what we see, we have Mr. Guilbeault, who wants to block resource development. We have Sean Fraser, who created the immigration crisis and then the housing crisis. A new housing minister yesterday who says he doesn't want housing costs to go down. Presumably he wants them to go up, like they did when he nearly tripled them as mayor of Vancouver. So what we're seeing is that in the last 48 hours of this Liberal government is looking a lot like the last 10 years of the Liberal government. What we need is a real change.
It's highly probable that they are stalling for time with this. Number 3, they're probably trying to bypass any actual debate because they will probably lose those. You know how they have the vote of confidence. They have one when they do the throne speech, and then they also have one when they release budgets. This could be them trying to delay it, especially because this budget, as we can assume, is not going to include anything like immigration costs, pipeline developments, housing, nothing like that. So if they can push through targeted legislation without a comprehensive plan, that would probably be their ideal strategy right now. And again, just shows all of us that we were right this entire time. We were called a lot of names, but we were indeed right.
So Tim, we know Daniel Smith is not going to like that. We know Scott Moe is probably not going to like that. What do you make of that answer from Stephen Guilbeault, who has moved away from those files, but he's still the Quebec lieutenant in this government?
I guess there's a new historic moment coming on pipelines. Is there, or the National Film Board's about to tell the story? Well, what the hell is he doing weighing in on that? I mean, I get it is something that is dear to his heart, but it has nothing to do with his current remit. So back to what I said a moment ago and Supriya said a moment ago, guys, get yourself organized or you're going to be in trouble, and you're going to have nights like this every night. Well, why did Cabinet Minister X say that? Why did Cabinet Minister Y say that? Mark Carney yesterday in his interview on another network made the point that, yep, pipelines are on. He's coming out saying no. Again, not a great message, particularly if you're saying to the world, come do business here. Let's invest here. We're serious players. Well, on day 2 of your cabinet, one of your senior ministers is saying, I don't know.
Well, I mean, Jordan, he's not wrong in the point that there is not like there is a proponent with a big west-east pipeline.
But he is
ready to
contradicting
go.
what his boss said yesterday.
Well,
Directly contradicting his boss.
Yeah, well, yes, but on the narrow point I just made about a proponent, he's not contradicting anyone because there isn't one, right?
The fourth one that's coming to mind as well is that this could also be a media strategy, because if there's no budget right before they go for summer break, then there's no media cycle while they're off in order to dissect flaws that it may have. So to me, a fall economic statement allows for a lot tighter, I guess, of message control, and also some smaller announcements that are a little bit more spaced out. And all of that is ideal for media manipulation.
To be prudent. I mean, you'll hear me use that word more and more. Prudence, in a very...
What does it mean?
Well,
Like in
prudent is that you
layman's
take
terms,
as much information as you have to make sure you provide them with the best possible picture. That's why I said when we're going to come back in the fall, we're going to be in a position to provide them with a fiscal update, which are going to be substantive. And like I said, there will be no surprises because, the way normally I would agree with you that, the calendar year is quite different this year because we had an election in April. And that changed a bit the calendar of how things normally happen in Canada.
Are you sure, though, with all due respect, Minister, that Canadians had the impression that transparency and clarity would be delayed until the fall? I think the Prime Minister in particular campaigned on being straight with Canadians about how all of the stuff he is promising to do would actually unfold. And there are big questions. For example, your platform didn't even include the potential impact of, or the economic impact of, a trade war with the United States, some of which we're already feeling. You've made very specific promises on the spending side, for example, around government operations that don't appear to add up by any outside analysis I've seen. Like, don't Canadians deserve to know sooner rather than later how you're going to do what you've said you're going to do?
As soon as we can. Like I said, the first order of business, reduce tax for Canadians. That's the first order of business. And like you said, passing that to Parliament before recess is already something we'll have to work with other party to make sure that we have. But I say...
Wait. You mean to tell me that fake executive order that Mark Carney signed yesterday about the tax cut isn't real? I totally thought that Canada had executive orders like that you signed with Sharpie, just like Donald Trump did. Huh.
Of the lowest marginal tax rate, not too different from what the Conservatives were proposing on the election campaign. Well, if that is what is proposed and is what goes on paper in the Ways and Means motion, would the Conservatives support that, yes or no?
I never answer questions that start with if. We'll see what they do. But we support tax cuts. We are the party of tax cuts. And I've been talking about income tax cuts for years now. Our proposal was a 15% income tax cut for the average worker and senior that would save a couple up to $2,000. And we think that is the right way to go. But we'll always work with other parties to cut taxes for Canadians because we believe that $1 left in the hands of the person who earned it, including all of you, is better than $1 in the hands of the politician or bureaucrat.
I have to say, it is so very hypocritical and just outrageously unsurprising that Mark Carney, his first step when he gets elected, when he has his cabinet, is that he announces this 1% tax cut. And by the way, that will count for approximately $860-something per year on average, depending on your income. And the entire time, during his campaign, he was trying to smear the Conservatives for wanting to push tax cuts, remember? And then now you have Mark Carney saying, one of our first orders of business, a tax cut for the middle class, because hardworking Canadians will now keep more of their paychecks. You have François-Philippe Champagne, we don't need to present a budget because we're giving you a little tax cut. It's a big deal that, you get this tax cut. It's like, didn't you just finish trying to brainwash Canadians that cutting taxes is a bad thing?
He also has a tax cut, a bring-it-home tax cut that never comes home. It doesn't arrive until year 4 and 5, right when we see the need of Canadians. Our tax cut, compared to his plan, I'll give you one number, is 4 times larger this year. Is 4 times larger. These numbers are a joke.
And some people have said, they've criticized, Pierre Poilievre wants to cut taxes. So how does that make sense? Because the tax cut he wanted is going to be even more a lost revenue for the government. And the biggest difference there that clearly Canadians just don't think about is the fact that, yeah, he wanted to offer a much more significant tax cut that would really help people versus 1% in the lowest bracket. But with that, he was also going to repeal Bill C-69. He was going to repeal all of the bureaucracy. He was going to cut government bureaucracy and spending because we don't need it and we're wasting our money.
The campaign, they proposed a very small, very small savings. We think it should be a big savings. Canadians are vastly overtaxed after the last decade of Liberals. Right now, Canadians spend more on income tax, sales tax, and other taxes than they do on food, clothing, and shelter combined. So in our view, any tax cut is a good tax cut. But we always have to remember that there's a difference between what Liberals say and what Liberals do. So let's see what they do, and then I'll tell you what we'll do.
Switching over to what happened in Terrebonne, you know, I gotta say, I love the French people. My family's from Belgium. We're French speaking, not Dutch. And there's something about how incredibly blunt French people can be that, oh, it's just so admirable. Well, Elections Canada announced late last night that they've concluded, despite the error, remember that in Terrebonne, there was one girl who came forward showing that a mail-in ballot had the wrong postal code, which is it's a total slip provided by Elections Canada, by the way. And so that means that Elections Canada printed the wrong address on their mail-in ballots, which means that this girl is probably not alone. And in Terrebonne, the Liberals won after a recount by a single vote. And despite that already being a crazy margin, on top of this story coming out about there being a legitimate issue with Elections Canada, somebody seriously screwed up here, they have said that the vote is final. And watch this reporter trying to rage bait the Bloc leader over them announcing that, yeah, we're fighting this one.
Mr. Carney, and how concerned are you about misinformation circulating about this riding?
I do not give a damn about misinformation. The situation is quite clear. The judge has established that the Bloc Québécois would have lost the riding by one vote. The vote appeared in the hands of a citizen in a very clear fashion, and in that situation, the law requires the election to be done all over again in the riding of Terrebonne. This is what we expect. But since, I don't know what's the name in English of Election Canada, but since they cannot by themselves ask for the election to be repeated, we have to bring this situation in front of a judge in a court in order to do the election all over again.
Do you think that sets a precedent that you won't accept official election results from Elections Canada and you're not willing to listen to the vote of the people when your party doesn't win?
I'm not getting into that. I'm sorry to rain on the spectacular parade, but this is not my mindset. There's a law. It appears clear. We have a case. We go forward because we want this election to be held properly, and that's it.
How unbelievably disappointing that is. You have a case like this where it's by one vote also, which is just insane and highly improbable, and you have a legitimate reason to fight this and challenge it and call for a by-election. That would be the right thing to do in a situation like this. And the media is just so freaking desperate to say, oh, well, you know, misinformation and disinformation. Oh, do you worry about how this might make you look, that you're not willing to accept it? Girl, it was by one vote. And then you had somebody who got a return ballot with one vote for the Bloc, which would have made it a tie. Are you kidding me right now? What kind of narrative are you trying to create? Just use your freaking brain. Gosh, I just can't with these people, and I'm expecting to have another 4 years of it. So hopefully you stick around for all of that. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Be sure to subscribe, follow, like, comment your thoughts down below. Honestly, I can't push for that enough right now. I'm following a case right now. The CRTC which is like the broadcasting corporation basically of Canada who oversees everything. They're having hearings at the moment with streaming platforms, including YouTube and Netflix, and how they want to regulate it. And so, at first I was really scared about Mark Carney and him doing something to, maybe ban X in Canada. And now I'm starting to realize that there are very left-leaning powers that be that have a lot of power in our country, that they don't even need the federal government to get involved because they can just vote on these things and make them happen on their own. I'm probably going to be talking about that quite a lot tomorrow, as well as some other stuff coming out from CBC in particular. So again, if you can show your support, not just to me at all, there's a lot of us who are out here doing this, and we all have really good hearts, really good intentions. I shouldn't say all, most of us. And it really is more important than ever to show your support, whether that be through comments or likes or subscribing or following us on social media, because, we're going to be relying on that in the event that something happens where we start getting fizzled out, which of course Mark Carney has alluded to a lot. And the CRTC hearing is not looking great in our favor at the moment. So I'll keep you posted on that as it develops, and I will talk to you tomorrow.